Mr. Bubbles the Clown is a very important character in the Thomas and Friends cinematic universe. Making his debut in the 2004 episode Thomas in a Circus, Mr. Bubbles has continuously appeared throughout the original series run, from Series 8 all the way to Series 24, and he's been regarded as one of the best Thomas characters ever created. However, there's more to Mr. Bubbles than meets the eye, and today, we're going to delve into what makes this clown so captivating. Mr. Bubbles is a very special character, for he is the only character in Thomas to have a total of 3 names. Human character to have 3 names. Mr. Bubbles wasn't named until the Series 11 episode, Ding-a-Ling. However, he is not referred to as Mr. Bubbles here. In this episode, his name is Cuffy the Clown. The next time he is named is in the following series opener, Thomas and the Billboard, but instead of going by the Cuffy identity, he is now known as Mr. Giggles. It gets even more wild when going into the next season, where the clown yet again changes his name. Slippy Sodor is the proper introduction to the Mr. Bubbles character, and thankfully, from this point forward, he keeps that name all the way to the final series of the show. The biggest question to take from all this is, why does Mr. Bubbles, if that's even his real name, keep on changing his identity? Now, going by a writer's standpoint, it's likely that Cuffy, Giggles, and Bubbles were all meant to be 3 separate characters that ended up using the same clown model upon storyboarding the episode. But what about in universe? Well, clowns in real life typically don't go by their real identification, and the same likely applies for Mr. Bubbles. And with that said, it's also plausible that Mr. Bubbles, then named Cuffy, kept on changing his clown identification until he finally settled on a name he liked. I mean, what kind of a surname is Giggles or Bubbles anyway? But what if those names weren't false? What if these names the clown goes by were all genuine? Hear me out on this. You ever wondered what Giggles or Bubbles' first name could be? Well, I got a simple easy answer for you. Cuffy is Mr. Bubbles' first name. He went by this until the time he changed his name to Mr. Giggles. But why did he change his name to Mr. Giggles? Well, there's a Mr. at the start of his name. Ever guess that he could be married to a Mrs. Giggles? Perhaps before the first name change, Cuffy was likely single, or at the very least not married, and sometime before the events of Thomas and the Billboard, he married Mrs. Giggles, and decided to change his name to signify their marriage. Sounds sweet and all, until you remember that in the next season he goes by a different last name. That implies that something happened between Cuffy and his wife. Likely a divorce? Possible death. And it must have been a quick one considering how fast he was able to get remarried. This also could have been intentional by the writers too, as Thomas and the Billboard and Slippy Sodor, the first use of the Mr. Bubbles identification, were both written by the same guy. Now, I understand that in marriage, it's usually the female who takes the last name of the man they marry, and very little is it ever the other way around, but it's still possible, so I'm not ruling out the possibility of Cuffy taking the last name of his wives. Plus, Sodor is a fictional place, so really anything could go for them, like Gordon and the Boulder technically being cousins, for example. Unfortunately, that's where my theory with Mr. Cuffy Bubbles ends. Or does it? Have you ever wondered what Mr. Bubbles looks like without his clown makeup and attire? In fact, hang on, he actually looks a lot like someone. Someone from an entirely different show. Maybe if you just remove the overalls and clown colors. Oh my gosh. I don't believe it. Mr. Bubbles is secretly Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force! It all makes sense! This joke has gone on long enough.
Bubble liquid!